Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real tale with you. Friends, today's story is about a bank robbery story. People used to call this bank robbery is a perfect bank robbery because it was done so perfectly. In this story, at first, the thieves were even ready to surrender to the police themselves, but by the time the police arrived, they had already fled after committing the theft. Who were these people? It will be revealed in this video. There are four main people in this story who carried out this bank robbery. Firstly, the man who was the mastermind of this bank robbery. His name was Fernando Arango, who was a painter. The second member was Sebastian Bolster, who was an engineer by profession. And the third member's name was Beto Dellatore, who financed this entire theft. The last member of this gang was Louis Sillane, who was a criminal and had already been in jail for several crimes. However, there were two more people who assisted these four in this theft, but neither were they ever caught nor did their names ever come out. The story begins in the year 2005 when Fernando goes to his psychiatrist for a session, and there he tells the psychiatrist that he wants to rob a bank. Initially, the doctor is very surprised, but knowing that Fernando is a drug addict, he thinks he is still under the influence. The psychiatrist then asks Fernando how he will pull off the bank robbery, and Fernando tells him that he is an artist and will treat the bank robbery as a masterpiece. Now, the psychiatrist starts to believe that Fernando is indeed under the influence and dismisses the idea. Unbeknownst to him, Fernando is about to execute the biggest and most brilliant robbery in the history of Argentina. Fernando starts keeping an eye on the banks in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. He is looking for a bank that has a lot of money but lacks security. His attention is drawn to Banco Rio, a bank that was located in Rich Place, where rich people kept their money and jewelry. Fernando thinks it is the best bank for him because it has a lot of money and jewelry to offer. He then plans 7 strategies to rob this bank, but after analyzing all the strategies, he chooses 2. The first strategy was to enter the bank with weapons and quickly get rid of all the hostages before the police arrive, and then escape before they can catch him. But then he thought that in his haste, he might not be able to rob the bank entirely, and if caught, the police wouldn't let him go. The second strategy was to dig a tunnel under the bank and enter from there. But then he thought that the sensor alarms would buzzing and he would be caught again. Fernando thinks that both strategies carry equal risk. Then he considers going with the second strategy, making a tunnel under the bank and reaching the bank's vault. He did just that, then started thinking about renting a flat on the ground floor near the bank. But during this time, he noticed something that made his job much easier. One day, as he was passing by the bank, he noticed a manhole. He saw that there was a manholes about every 10 meters away, so Fernando started coming every night to check them, to see which sewerage line the manhole leads to the exit. Then one day, when he went to the opening of the manhole, he succeeded in going to the sewage line. Now he knew where the sewage line of the manhole leads to exit, and the line that led to the bank was only about 500 meters away from the bank. Fernando entered the sewerage line and began to see where the pit could be made to reach the bank's vault. As soon as Fernando entered the sewer line, he saw that its opening was small, but as he continued forward, the width of the sewer line increased. After advancing about 100 meters, the sewer lines had become about 20 meters wide. This was a large sewage line that spread throughout the city from under the bank. Now, Fernando's second task was to form his gang. He then spoke to his friend Sebastian about the bank robbery. Sebastian was surprised to hear this because he only knew Fernando as someone who uses drugs and has no criminal record against him. Sebastian was heavily in debt, and when he heard about this bank robbery, he immediately agreed because he also wanted to live his life with a lot of money. Then Fernando told his friend about the entire planning of the bank robbery. Then both of them went to the sewer line to see where the digging should be done, which was a direct route out of the bank. They had brought a camera with them to keep an eye on the bank, and whenever they went to the bank, they took a hidden camera with them and made a video of the entire bank. The bank vault was in the bank's underground, where the sewer line passed. Although they had carefully studied both the bank and the sewer line, they still needed the construction layout of the bank, which showed how to enter the bank and where to exit from the bank, where everything in the bank is located. Fernando knew that if he got hold of the bank's map, The robbery would be very easy, but the map was only with the municipality. As they progressed with the planning of this robbery, Fernando began to realize that he needed more people in his team who had experience in stealing. Then Fernando met Beto Dellatore, who was a part of a criminal gang that had carried out many thefts. Fernando and Beto met at a pub and became friends there. Then Fernando told Beto about the bank robbery and asked him to finance it, but Beto said he didn't have that much money yet, but he had a truck that we could sell and get a lot of money. In this way, Beto became the third member of the gang and financed this robbery by sell his truck. After joining the gang, Beto tells Fernando that there is a man named Louis Sillane in his gang who has executed many robberies very cleanly, and he is the most experienced man in this gang. Louis was a very intelligent and cunning man. He easily deceived people and people believed in him. Then they also included him in his gang. Now their gang consisted of 4 people. Now Fernando and Sebastian needed to know about the accurate measurement of the bank's wallet and sewerage line, and they could only find out through the map. And then Louis tells them that I can bring you this map. Then Fernando asked him, how will you bring this map? Then Louis said, leave all this to me. And then a few days later, he brings the map and gives it to Fernando. When they asked, how did you bring this map? He did not tell anything. This fact has remained a secret till now, how Louis also brought the map. With a few days of planning, they start digging from where the sewerage is near the bank, and they buy a drilling machine and diesel generator for digging. Then they take all the goods at night. They enter the sewerage line, and then from the next day they start digging there. One of them always stayed on the road, and he used to listen if the sound of digging was coming out, and if a little sound of digging came out, then it was not heard along with the noise of the vehicles during the day. And while digging like this, it took them several months as they kept coming near the bank wall. Fernando's anxiety increased as they approached the bank wall. He was afraid that as soon as they reach the bank wall, the security alarm will start ringing there. Now Fernando began to spend more time thinking about how exactly they would get into the wallet without being detected. Then an idea came to his mind, which completely changed this whole plan. Initially, he thought they would go inside the bank wallet through the tunnel, but with the alarm turned on, now he made a plan to go inside the bank with weapons, not leave any traces, and then exit from the tunnel. Fernando had now reversed the entire entry-exit plan to save himself and his team from any danger. Fernando's plan was that when the police arrive, they will stand at the gate, and the police won't know that they exited through the tunnel. And when he had made this whole plan, he checked on the internet if anyone had ever committed such a theft, but he found nothing on the internet. Now Fernando had one task left, which was to acquire the tools. Beto arranged such tools that were very different, and when the police found out about these tools, they were very surprised. Now, while planning this bank robbery, it took them a whole year. Then Louis tells them one thing, that if the police find out that we are exiting from this sewer line, then the police will quickly go to the exit point of this sewerage line. After hearing this, Fernando thinks for a while and then plays his masterstroke. Now, Fernando tells his team that they will not exit from the sewerage line exit, but they will exit from the manhole of the sewerage line, because there was a manhole every 10 meters, so he chose the manhole that was 200 meters away. But there was a lot of risk in this task, so Fernando made a very good plan. He tells Sebastian to create a big commotion under the van and lift the van up so that when he comes out of the manhole, they can directly enter the van and no one sees them. One day when all 4 people were customizing the van, Beto's girlfriend comes there, and when Fernando sees all this, he asks Beto what she is doing here. Even then, he says there is no danger from her. She is with us. All their planning was complete now. Only one task was left, which was to open the safety deposit with a tool, because there were more than 400 lockers in the bank, and they couldn't be opened with a hammer. They needed a tool to quickly open the safety deposit box. Now Sebastian showed his engineering power and created a hydraulic tool that could open every safety deposit box within 7 seconds. Now these people were fully prepared to execute this loot. January 13th, 2006, the day had finally come. They had dug such a deep hole inside the sewer line that it had filled with water. They dug the hole deeply because they made a plan that they could sit on a boat there and go up to 200 meters from there to the manhole they kept as an exit for themselves. Sebastian had left a boat there along with equipment. Now he climbed the bank's wall and waited for his friend's signal. The other 3 people entered the bank through the main gate and took everyone inside hostage. The bank's security officer was in his security room when he saw all this. He quickly locked the door from inside and called the police. Since this was a bank robbery case, the police arrived quickly. Fernando learned that the police had surrounded the bank from all sides. That's when he tried his trick. He placed a gun on the head of a hostage, took him outside the bank, and made it seem like he wanted to escape from there. However, Fernando then released the hostage and ran back inside the bank. He did this to confuse the police and show that they wanted to escape from there before the police arrived, but couldn't. Fernando's trick worked, and the police thought that the thieves had no other way out. For Fernando and his team, the security officer became a problem because he had locked himself in his room and was informing the police about everything happening in the bank. If they tried to exit through the tunnel, he would see them and inform the police. They had to somehow get the guard out of the room. Louis told him that if he didn't come out of the room, something big would happen there. Still, when the guard didn't come out of the room, Louis threatened him with the life of the employee. At first, the guard didn't take this seriously, and when the employee started crying and begged him to come out, he finally came out of the room and surrendered himself. Then Fernando took his phone and took him out of the bank. And when security officer leaves the bank, the police commander asks him what's going on inside the bank. He tells him that there are 3 men inside who have made 30 people hostage. Then the police notice someone signaling from a window to the police and shows them guard's phone. On the other side, Sebastian waits for Fernando's signal, and then Fernando, using walkie-talkie, instructs Sebastian to dig a hole in the bank's wall with a drill machine. After some time, Sebastian digs the hole in the wall and enters the bank. He takes out his tools and starts opening the locker. They had planned to open 400 lockers in 2 hours. Meanwhile, Fernando and Sebastian were opening the bank locker, and Louis and Beto were handling the people outside. Louis was very clever, so he was talking to the police in different voices each time, confusing them. When the police asked him what his demand was, Louis told them that his original plan was to quietly rob the bank and escape without harming anyone, but the police arrived so quickly that now they couldn't escape. His demand was to be allowed to leave easily. The police commander was watching Louis through his binoculars and saw that Louis was sitting on a chair as if it were his office. The police called him and told him to let all the hostages go, and the police would not chase them. Louis burst into laughter and told the police that he had been in jail for 15 years and knew all their tricks. He couldn't fall into their trap so easily. Then, the police said to leave one of the hostages, claiming he had already let the guard go, and then he hung the phone. Louis calls the commander every little while, talks to him, and then hangs up. Because of this, Fernando and Sebastian were getting more time to loot the wallet. They spent 2 hours this way, although they had planned to open the 400 locker in 2 hours. It didn't happen that way. They only managed to open the 198 lockers. However, they did manage to steal 20 million in cash from it. When Fernando called Louis and told him their job was done, Louis called the police commander and told him that they wanted to surrender, but before that, they wanted to eat pizza because they knew that if the police caught them, they would be hungry for several days. They gave the police the address of an Italian restaurant and said they wanted pizza from that restaurant. The police quickly sent some of their officers. They had given the address of the Italian restaurant because it was quite far from the bank, and by the time the police came back with the pizza, they had already escaped. They all gathered in the locker room and started going down the hole. They went into the manhole where their van was parked, and sitting in the van, they went to their safe house. There, they parked their car in the garage, and Fernando turned on the TV and watched what the police were doing outside the bank. When he saw on TV that the police were still waiting for them to surrender, he laughed because the police were still waiting for them to surrender, and they had already looted everything and escaped from there. When it had been quite some time since the pizza arrived, the police commander called Louis again, but his phone was not reachable. The police thought something was wrong, so they went straight into the bank and saw that the employees and the people who had come there were lying on the ground. The biggest question in front of the police right now was, how did this happen? Because there was no evidence of their escape and no way for them to know where the thieves had fled, because Louis and Beto had already hid the hole with the help of the files locker. The police began to suspect that those thieves are hidden in these hostages, so police interrogated them. However, later the police found out that none of them were involved, so they let them go. After nearly 2 hours, the police found the pit, while all 4 thieves were watching TV, making fun of the police. They divided all the stolen money into 4 parts and said, "From now on, we won't come in front of each other. From now on, our paths are different." However, they didn't know that due to one mistake, all 4 would be caught separately. As you may remember, Beto's girlfriend met them when Fernando and his team were customizing the van. Then one day, when Beto checked his bag, 5 bundles were missing. He asked his girlfriend if she had taken the money from it. She replied that she had taken out 5 bundles from this bag. Beto scolded her a lot and got very angry because he said, "Because of your mistake, we will all be caught." Then Beto took his bag and left the house looking for a place to hide the money. But his girlfriend was so angry with his behavior that she went straight to the police and told them everything. Then the police arrested Beto and asked about the rest of his gang members, but he didn't tell them because his girlfriend also knew about the other 3 members, so they were also caught. However, the police could not recover the money because neither they admitted to committing the theft nor did they say anything. So, with this one mistake, they all got caught.